I have to bring this up. You told a story about someone who called into you on a radio show.
Yeah.
Who wasn't a fan of Western medicine, I believe. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So it was a radio show where I was talking about my book, and it was a woman from Berkeley who, there are a lot of people in Berkeley who are suspicious of Western medicine, many of them for good reasons. I mean, many of them have had bad experiences or they have bad health and they have not found the answers that they've been looking for in Western medicine. And of course, on the one hand, you'd say, well, there's only so much medicine can do. But on the other hand, clearly there's a class of people, and a growing class of people, if you look at the numbers of people who are using alternative medicines or natural medicines, who find that there's something appealing about that, about that effort at making people feel better or more healthy, that normal medicine is not providing. And so at first I was especially in terms of that phone call, I get, it's easy for me to defend Western medicine, and I believe in Western medicine, and it's easy to dismiss the concerns of somebody who feels that Western medicine is all phony. But what I realized when I started to think about this after going to that radio station was that is a completely valid concern, and what it speaks to is this whole failure, really, of Western medicine to speak to people emotionally. And it goes back to IWF, it goes back to information with feeling. It's the connection of data, of clinical information, of science, with something that will actually impact on people's lives and make them feel better about their lives. Dean Ornish, who I speak to every once in a while, says that when it comes to health, we prey on, for some reason we think using people's worst emotions, fear and anxiety, is going to get them to change their lives. And that's just not the case. We run away from fear. We run away from anxiety, right? We don't like those emotions. Those are negative emotions. And why we expect those emotions to somehow work in terms of health when we could be making people feel, when the goal is to feel better, after all. I mean, we talk about feeling better. Those don't make us feel better. And I think there's something to that. I think there's something very powerful in thinking about how we approach health and healthcare with the goal to always be trying to make people feel better.
When you talked about, for instance, weight loss apps, and you talked about the gauge on the Prius, and I think there's an element of control that people want to feel that they have too. They want to be involved in the process to an extent, So I'm just wondering, where do you think we're going to go from here? I mean, it seems that you've laid a pathway out for us here.
Well, so a lot of this falls in with what they talk about when they say personalized medicine, right? So when people talk about personalized medicine broadly, they are talking about this idea of delivering healthcare that is tailored to you, and so that's a big trend, and it's been somewhat slow to gain some footing, in part because the way people tend to think of personalized medicine is through targeted drugs to individuals' genomes largely, and that's been a very small and not very successful area of research. But I think the idea of personalization and bringing meaning together with medicine is something that we're starting to recognize is much more powerful, and actually is something that traditional medicine can do, and we don't have to be as wary of emotion, of people's feelings as we might kind of be instinctually tempted to be. I'm not a touchy-feely guy. It's not easy for me to be talking about these things or to be kind of advocating these things. But I do think there's something very substantive and promising about recognizing that people are emotional animals, and using that. There's a very rational argument to using people's emotional capacity to get them to behave better.
I actually spoke with a doctor who treats diabetic children, and she has had tremendous success using Facebook and Twitter and texting them. They get very engaged with her, and her colleagues think she's absolutely nuts. They're in a litigious field, so